You look around your perfectly curated, uncluttered room and mistake that stark emptiness for control. You honestly believe that by stripping your environment down to bare walls and a few essential items, you have somehow outsmarted the consumerist machine. The brutal reality is entirely different. You haven't escaped the system. You have simply become its most profitable, compliant victim. That dramatic weekend purge you felt so incredibly proud of, the one where heavy bags of your belongings were hauled off to donation centers, was not a spiritual awakening. It was an act of financial self-sabotage. You were meticulously following a script that guarantees you will remain perpetually dependent, economically vulnerable, and constantly buying. You threw away your wealth to satisfy an aesthetic. Remember that profound sense of lightness you felt for roughly 3 weeks after emptying your closet. You stood there, admiring the negative space. You were convinced you finally had life completely figured out. And then reality, in all its unforgiving, cyclical nature, crashed into your pristine environment. The seasons shifted, the temperature dropped abruptly, and you realized you had willingly discarded the only winter jacket that actually kept you warm. You sacrificed it to the minimalism gods during a manic decluttering frenzy simply because it violated an arbitrary rule. You were forced to walk back into a store. You pulled out your credit card. You handed over your money to repurchase an item functionally identical to the one you gave away for free months earlier. This is not an isolated incident. It is the defining feature of the lifestyle you have adopted. You are trapped in a quiet, exhausting cycle of purging things out of misplaced guilt, only to rebuy them out of desperate necessity. The money is slowly draining from your accounts, slipping away in $50 and $100 increments. You are bleeding capital just to maintain an illusion that you need nothing. The central deception of this entire movement is that it presents extreme deprivation as a universal formula for human happiness. The advice you are treating as gospel was never engineered for a normal, functioning adult embedded in a complex reality. Much of it was explicitly created by single individuals living in temperate climates, working highly flexible jobs, with absolutely no children and massive amounts of unacknowledged privilege. The systems designed to work perfectly for a 28-year-old content creator lounging in Los Angeles will utterly destroy the logistics of a family of 4 surviving a Minnesota winter. Yet, you apply these rigid dogmas universally to situations they were never designed for. By constantly minimizing your inventory, you are doing nothing but destroying your own personal infrastructure. You are tearing down the physical buffers that protect you from the friction of existence. You leave yourself entirely at the mercy of the marketplace to solve every minor inconvenience that arises. Examine the intellectual bankruptcy of the rule you follow most religiously. If you haven't used an item in 6 months, you are told you must get rid of it. It sounds incredibly logical until you subject it to even a second of critical scrutiny. A 6-month timeframe completely ignores entire categories of legitimately vital possessions. You do not wear a winter coat in July. You certainly do not wear a swimsuit in January. Applying a 6-month rule to items tied to the seasons means absolutely nothing. You might not touch your emergency first aid kit, your backup batteries, or your jumper cables for years. But when the moment of crisis inevitably arrives, those dormant items instantly become the most critical things you own. Applying a short grace period to emergency tools is not minimalism. It is an absurd, dangerous miscalculation of risk. Then there is the arbitrary obsession with the number 33. You are told your wardrobe must contain exactly 33 items to achieve true clarity. This number was not derived from comprehensive psychological research on optimal living. It was invented by an individual describing their personal preference and then echoed endlessly until it morphed into an unbending law. A tiny capsule wardrobe might work flawlessly if you never leave a climate-controlled apartment and rarely attend formal events. But if you commute to a corporate office, attend sporting events, exercise, and experience 4 distinct seasons, that constraint becomes a suffocating straitjacket. You are not eliminating decisions. You are multiplying your stress by forcing a tiny rotation of garments to endure massive wear and tear. You ensure you will have to replace them far sooner than a properly sized, resilient wardrobe. This same flawed logic infects how you are taught to value your experiences. The prevailing doctrine insists that you must buy experiences instead of things. Experiences are painted as inherently pure, while physical objects are painted as toxic burdens. This dichotomy is entirely false. Things and experiences are deeply, inextricably intertwined. A good kitchen knife enables the experience of cooking meals you are proud to serve. A tent enables the experience of surviving and enjoying the wilderness. When you refuse to invest in the physical tools required for complex pursuits like woodworking, photography, or music, you actively impoverish your own life. You tell yourself you are being wise by spending $300 on a single dinner that vanishes by the next morning. Yet, you refuse to spend that same $300 on a quality piece of furniture or equipment that could provide you with daily satisfaction for an entire decade. Look at the rigid application of the one-in, one-out rule. You treat it like a law of physics. Buy a new shirt, donate an old shirt. If you own 3 mediocre pans and buy one high-quality pan that could replace 2 of them, the math of one in, one out completely fails to capture the actual upgrade happening. It creates bizarre incentives. You throw away perfectly good, functional items just to grant yourself the psychological permission to acquire something new. This environmental and financial waste completely undermines the mindfulness you claim to be practicing. And consider the sheer absurdity of the Spark Joy test when applied to the mechanics of daily survival. It introduced emotion into decluttering, but it fails completely when it becomes the only criterion for ownership. Your toilet brush does not spark joy. Your plunger, your tax documents, and your heavy snow shovel do not spark joy. They exist strictly to serve necessary, unpleasant functions. When you purge functional necessities, because they fail to produce emotional delight, you set a trap for your future self. This self-inflicted vulnerability extends directly into your physical space. You conflate practical living with an all-white aesthetic. You want the white walls, the natural wood, the single carefully placed plant. But keeping that aesthetic pristine is a massive, time-consuming burden. Families with children or pets cannot maintain it. You end up spending more time cleaning than you ever did before. You strip away all color and texture until your home feels incredibly sterile to inhabit. Your financial behaviors are equally compromised. You absorbed the rule that a true minimalist never buys anything on sale. You believe sales are merely manipulative tricks, so you refuse to buy household essentials in bulk when the price drops. You fear the visual clutter of items in your pantry. As a result, you pay maximum retail price repeatedly. The logic defeats itself. You are literally paying extra money just to keep your shelves looking aesthetically empty. While you are busy curating this sterile environment, the most valuable asset you have is silently vanishing. Time is passing. Years are slipping away while you engage in the exhausting, low-stakes micromanagement of your own inventory. Think about the sheer volume of hours you have wasted standing in front of a closet, agonizing over whether an item passes an arbitrary test. Think about the compounding financial loss, the money you wasted rebuying the winter boots, the specialized tools, the perfectly broken-in gear you enthusiastically donated. That leaked capital could have been invested. It could have been gathering compound interest, building a wall of deep financial security around you. Instead, you burned it. You traded long-term financial leverage for the short-term dopamine hit of a dramatic weekend purge. You optimized your entire life around the romanticized ability to fit your existence into a few boxes, completely ignoring the fact that you have no plans to be nomadic. You sacrificed the daily quality of your established life for a fantasy you are never actually going to live. Your entire framework requires a cold, structural demolition. You must entirely abandon the concept of minimalism as a competitive race to the bottom, where success is measured by maximum deprivation. Forced scarcity is not freedom. Freedom is possessing exactly what you require to navigate your specific reality without being crushed by excess. This is not an aesthetic philosophy. It is applied financial literacy. You must start evaluating possessions based on their true, long-term utility rather than their ability to photograph well in a white room. A person with an intricate career, multiple demanding hobbies, and a growing family objectively needs a vast amount of physical equipment. Owning those tools is not a failure of discipline. It is the correct mathematical response to a complex life. You need to view your belongings as personal capital, deeply interconnected with your financial capital. Both require you to understand true costs, not just the purchase price, but the ongoing cost of ownership, the cost of premature disposal, and the heavy tax of rebuying. The rules you worshipped were the exact mechanisms dismantling your stability. They were arbitrary restrictions that forced you to systematically destroy your own resources while feeling a deep, unearned sense of moral superiority. So look around that flawlessly empty room you worked so hard to create. Stare at the pristine surfaces and the complete lack of visual friction. Acknowledge what it actually represents. When the inevitable friction of the real world eventually hits your doorstep, that vast, carefully curated emptiness will offer you absolutely nothing. You paid a staggering price to build a void, and the void will never protect you.